What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Venue RX podcast. Today, we are going to be talking with someone who has a lot of experience in a number of different sections of the wedding and event industry. And we're going to be talking about something that I think is a very impactful piece specifically for our venue owners. And of course, this is the Venue RX, but we do cover a lot of different topics. So there will be plenty of nuggets that even if you are not a venue owner, you can apply to your business. But today we are going to be talking to Kevin Dennis. Kevin is a educator. He has been on stages, Wedding Wire. He's been on Cater Source and a number of different publications as well. He's contributed to, and I am excited to sit down with him today and talk about how venues can do a better job working with their vendors, among other topics. So, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So this is going to be an interesting topic today because I feel like as we talk to venue owners, as venue owners are looking to do a better job at their properties, there are so many different facets of that. There's marketing, sales, and all of that goes into it. But there is a huge component that is their reputation and how vendors see them. And so before we get on to that, though, I would love to hear a little bit of a background story because you are the owner of Fantasy Sound Event Services. You have experience on the production and DJ side, all the way on to what you currently do in the Livermore area up in California. So can you kind of walk us through a little bit your intro to the industry and then fast track us to where you are now?
Sure. So I started at Fantasy Sound Event Services in February of 1989. So I'm old, is what I always joke with everyone. I've been around for a while. Seasons, I guess, is the way we say it.
I like that.
Seasoned veteran. I've been around a while. Started out as a DJ. And then how I kind of grew into all the different facets that are the services we offer is we're 45 minutes east of San Francisco without traffic. The San Francisco vendors do not want to come out to my little neck of the woods, and they charge a lot, really a very expensive amounts for delivery fees and all that different stuff. And so about 1992, I got connected with a caterer that was doing off-premise stuff, but also had her commissary kitchen in a Shriners Hall. And so she would rent the Shriners Hall and whatnot. And so around here at that time, that was kind of the premier place to get married or have an event or anything because it was the biggest venue around here. But what she was having a hard time is getting, services out from there. And so she used to call me record spinner. And so record spinner, I need you to figure out this. And this was long before Google and all that kind of stuff was around. So that's how I learned how to do AV, and that's how we learned how to do lighting. And then we grew into all the different, things we would do because she's like, there was a need and I felt, we filled it for her. And we and as her company's grown, she now owns two of I think the premier venues in my area. The Palm Event Center in Costa Real in Pleasanton, they're kind of looked at as the crown jewel, so to speak. And so, as she's grown, we've grown along with her. And so hopefully that got you to 89 to 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you still do that currently, correct?
Yeah, we like for her, she's considered still, it's kind of funny. I met her in 92, really didn't start working for her until 94. And, I was a punk kid, I was only 22 years old. I'd show up to the meetings in jeans and a sweatshirt. And she kind of sat me down one time at a kind of speed dating, speed networking kind of thing. And she's like, you need to come here like you want business and you need to look like she kind of gave it to me, so to speak. But I took everything she said to heart and listened to her. And I came back in the very next meeting with a shirt and tie. And, I wanted her business. I wanted to, work with her. And about, maybe 4 to 6 months after that moment is when she gave me my first opportunity to work with her. And, it slowly, our relationship slowly developed. And, and now she's probably 60% of my revenue for my business still to this day. Yeah. So she's big. We're in-house for both of her venues. So if you get married at her venue, you're doing anything in the ceiling, hanging chandeliers, lighting, drapery, or any of that kind of stuff, you have to go through us or one other company. So.
Wow. That's incredible. That's such an accomplishment to have worked with her for that long, really, I think is a testament to, the fact that you've had to evolve and grow to match her growth. And that's tough to do, to keep in pace like that.
It is. And it's fun and exciting. And even her son is getting married in a couple of weeks and we're buying new products in for that, so it's an evolution of, I'm big that we don't want to stay. I don't want to do the same wedding over and over again. So I want to find new products. I want to find new trends, and I want to keep, growing our business to where, you could tell hey, oh yeah, that was like a wedding from 5 years ago. And this is a wedding today. They look different. I'm not big on doing the same stuff over and over again. Although brides, they want to do the same thing over and over again, but
it's new to them, right?
That's what I always got to look at, because there's a chandelier that we do at their venue that we've done over and over again. And I'm like, yeah, everyone asks, isn't that your favorite chandelier? And in my head, my pocketbook, thinks it's my favorite chandelier in my head. I'm like, no, it's time to move on. Let's go to something different. So.
Well, I definitely can see being in the venue industry myself and, working the work that we do with venues. It's interesting. You see people gravitate towards the same picture spot. You see them, work with the same vendors and do the same thing. And there certainly are those favorites. But as a vendor or as someone who is a part of this, I think we get excited when there's something different, something we can try,
Oh yeah. Even speaking of the event venue, Palm Event Center, Costa Real, anytime we do something new, their staff is like, oh, they got their phones out, they're taking photos. It's like they've never seen it before, they haven't seen it before, but they get excited about it. And the next thing you know, they're doing tours, they're talking about it, they're showing people from their phone. And next thing you know, that's how a kind of a trend has started taking off, we get an idea.
Well, this is such a good segue, I think, into talking about the vendor-venue relationship, because, you've obviously worked, it sounds like there's been a growth cycle for you guys as a part of working with these venues, multiple venues now, and you've also been servicing other venues,
of course,
as well. And so for you, the work that you've done with these venues, just starting out right from the top, do you feel like there are some top 1, 2, maybe even 3 things that a vendor can do who's looking to offer their services to a venue, something that they can do to immediately get some visibility and kind of immediately get on that radar? Almost like that speed dating thing. I mean, she took the time to tell you the speed networking thing where she was like, hey, button up your collar, and you were there, you wanted to get the business. So what are some of those things that you've seen in your years of experience?
So that vendors don't do well for venues, what we do, what's not good for us.
What can vendors do to better?
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So first thing is, I think when you're there, I have a big rule that I've kept around forever is I treat a venue as we are a guest in someone's home. So being a guest in someone's home, you're not going to go stand on a chair. You're not going to go be demanding and, start requesting and I need this, I need that, and be needy. I mean, that's another thing. And you just got to be polite. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I find I've worked so many, we work at those 2 venues I told you about, and there's other venues and other wineries we work at here pretty regularly. And for us, it was about building relationships. We have strong relationships. These people are, I know about their kids. They know about my kids. We know about each other. We care about each other. It's a relationship. But you get these people that will come in there and a photographer will you're not allowed to go in this one area of the venue or the vineyard because it's an active working vineyard and you can't go in there, but they provide other vineyards. But this one photographer wanted to go in this vineyard so bad that she just said, forget it, and went in there and broke the rule, and that's not playing by, you're not, it doesn't go back to my role. You're a guest in someone's home, and that's, kind of the thing that drives me nuts too, is at the end of the night, we'll be cleaning up and you'll see another DJ company will leave a roll of the tape in the corner. And they McDonald's obviously on the way in. So there's McDonald's bags, and just left their trash for someone else to clean. And to me, that's very disrespectful. So I think as as vendors providing services in these venues, we have to leave it just as clean as when we got there. And then we also shouldn't be, I need a ladder, I need tape, I need scissors, I need. You need to be prepared when you go into a venue, regardless what service you do, to have all the items you need to provide your service to the best of its ability. It's not the venue's responsibility to provide you things, to provide your service.
That's really well said. And for any venue owner listening to this right now, they're saying, amen. Like, Kevin, we absolutely love this because it's true. And, operating 5 venues myself, and then previously being a owner of a staffing company where we were sending, staff all the time to venues and to work with catering companies and things like that. We definitely saw the difference between vendors who were prepared and those that weren't and were constantly asking for things. I'm curious about this. What do you feel like is the dynamic that occurs when you have an ongoing relationship with a venue? So, and I think you're just the perfect person to talk to about this because you have worked at these 2 venues for so long. What happens when there's some familiarity, right?
Yeah, it jokes. I always joke. I get away with a whole lot more at these venues than I would anywhere else. I'm really good friends with the chef. So I walk right into the kitchen and, in the middle of an event, and him and I will, just have a conversation and, catch up and talk. I would never in a million years do that at another, venue. I will walk in their office. I will, hey guys, do you mind if I work in the corner? Nope. Oh yeah, no problem. And I'll do things that I won't normally, I would never in a million years do that in another venue. And it just, I think the wall kind of gets, they treat me like I'm one of their staff. I guess is the best way to look at, or part of the family, like they spent a lot of, it was back in 18, maybe 17, 18, they spent a lot of money with the trainer. I brought in a corporate trainer, and then they really recommended that, hey, you should really, to align ourselves, you might want to consider, bringing in this trainer. And so it was the best thing I ever did. I brought in the same trainer, and it even aligned our companies even more because our staff, we were both kind of operating under the same principles, the same guidelines, and it just kind of uniformed us as well. So I think a lot of it with these, it's that relationship and developing that relationship with people, and having that, even for me, like some of the other venues we work at, a lot of it is you get 2 hours or you get 3 hours, before to set up. Otherwise, the client's got to pay more money. But I have a relationship with this venue. I know they don't have something going on earlier. I'm like, hey, they've ordered a lot of stuff. It's going to make your venue look pretty. Can I have a couple extra, hours for setup to get there? Especially like if we're doing something we've never done before, and we just want that a little bit more time to make it look good. Especially, brand new design, something we've never done, and having that relationship, pick up the phone and just say, hey, XYZ venue, can I, this is what's going on. Do you have an early event? What's going on? I've even had, venues come to me and say, hey, we don't have a Friday night event. If you guys wanted to come in during the day, Friday, preset some of your stuff, and go. It's just having those relationships because they know I'm going to make their venue look good. And, it's a nice relationship because they have more photos to show people.
Yeah. Well, and you're going to make their client happy too, so that's,
and I'm pretty good about not telling the clients, like, see, that's where I like tiptoe the line. That's where I don't tell the client like, hey, I can get early access at your venue. Don't pay for it kind of thing. I never I'll go, all right, I'll take the other approach. Like client will come in with this big crazy stuff and I'll reach out to the venue saying, hey, I have a client that wants to do this. Is there time to make this happen? Because it's going to look good in your venue as well. Instead of going, hey, I'll skate the rules, so to speak, because I'm a big believer that we have to follow the rules.
So what I'm hearing from you is even though there is that level of familiarity that comes when you've put in the work, you've shown up correctly, you're bringing your own supplies and equipment to accomplish your piece of the puzzle. So you're doing that to get the relationship. But once you have the relationship, I mean, even though you mentioned you go back in the kitchen and you're talking with the chef or, some of the examples that you gave, you're still treating the relationship with a lot of respect. You're still asking, you're still not assuming, right? Yeah. I'm hearing some of those things.
Yeah, even like the back to the two venues that we work at all the time. Like I'll never go do a site survey, and I'm like I always tell the client, you need to go get permission from them, to make sure they don't have another event or a meeting or something going on. I let them be the mediator. I like to don't show up unannounced and any of that kind of stuff. I like to, once again, we're a guest at someone's home. It's a fine line at the two venues that I work at all the time, because I do get away with a little bit more than I would anywhere else. But it goes back to we're a guest at someone's home. We got to treat it with respect. So let's
pivot now and let's talk on the other side of things, because we've given some tidbits of information for all of our friends who are listening or watching online. That there are ways that you can have a better relationship with the venues. You can treat their property like, you're a guest in their home, and you can have that approach and really get a lot of rapport. So that's that. But now for our venue owners, now for the folks who are looking to maybe attract high quality vendors, maybe even you're a new venue that doesn't really have the advantage yet of having a lot of business in. So you may not be able to command as much interest from a larger vendor who you really would like to work with. Maybe it's a rental vendor or something like that, but they're busy kind of focusing on some of those relationships on other larger, busier, more well-known venues. So for those venues out there that are looking to be easier to work with, that are looking to provide a better experience for their vendors, are there things that you have seen that have personally made your job easier on the reverse side of this whole thing, the venue to the vendor?
I'll be honest with you. I've seen lots of things that are amazing that when you go into a brand new venue. So I've had people reach out to me. I'm working at their venue for the first time and do kind of just a quick little Zoom meeting. I just want to introduce myself. Here's let you know kind of the rules, so to speak, of our venue, and how tell me what service you're providing. Just kind of open that door and made me feel welcome, and made me feel, because I'm not one of their everyday vendors. I always thought that was really nice. Venues that have clear, concise rules. Some of them even have us sign rules, this is, you want to hire this you hire this vendor to work at your venue, you need to have them sign this document, and it clearly states what the rules are. And I think that's amazing. Venues that feed the vendors at the same time as the bride and groom. I'll be honest with you, it's just amazing, because we're bride and groom, we're there to service them, right? Especially, this is more important for the photographer than anybody. Like, while the bride and groom are eating, we're eating. And then when they're done, we're done. And then we can move on and keep pushing like table visits and different things along those lines. So a lot of the venues in my area here have adapted that program. And it's great, because I personally feel like it speeds things up. Like we get to the fun part, the dancing and all that kind of better. There's another venue we work at, which I think is amazing. They have a vendor cart. And it has the timeline, they have printed timelines on there. They do have a little bit of like, oops, I forgot things. So they have like a little kit there of a Tide stick or, like scissors, fishing string, some, safety pins, and it had a bunch of different things, but it also has a handful of bottle of waters, some protein bars on there as well. And it's just a little cart, and it has like on the side of it, they've attached like a little step ladder. So it just kind of, I was like, wow, they really care about their their vendors when you go to work there, because they have this nice little cart that's always really ready to go. I think that's a really cool thing as well. So.
All right. So a vendor cart, that's really interesting. I know that there are like emergency kits that planners and people like that have used for the bride, but that actually makes a lot of sense, especially because, venues have offices, or even in remote venues, they're usually little places where the team will hang out. And so if you have some sort of kit there, that makes a lot of sense.
It's a small little utility cart, a couple shelves. Like I said, it had a little step ladder hanging off the side of it. The biggest thing is they keep that day's timeline right on top, and it makes you feel welcome. Like you walk in and, like 9 times out of 10, you're not probably never going to touch anything on there, but it's that thought that they care.
So when you're at a venue that has, maybe they're a newer venue, and that they're a newer venue because maybe they don't have some of these things dialed in, right? And there's not clear direction on maybe the information you're even supposed to put in a certificate of insurance or some of these different things. What is your approach to this? And this is info and insight into a vendor's mind for a venue owner. What is your approach? How are you helping to kind of clear the air a little bit here? Because obviously they're not outlining the expectations very well.
Yeah, I would say, hey, at other venues, they require us to do this. Have you thought about doing that? Like just trying to give them a little bit of advice here and there of like what other venues in our area or kind of, or my experience of being at other venues, what they expect of us, kind of thing. Because, you see I would say it's the good, bad, and ugly, so a bride, you could tell where they spend their money is what's important to them. They may hire the top end photographer, but then go low end on everything else, or they might, they stretch to get into the venue. Therefore they're having to get lower end vendors to accommodate because they stretched their money because the venue was important to them. So it's always kind of interesting because then that brings in a whole different kind of, not a really well-oiled team, so to speak. So it's always fun to me when, you go into, I always joke that like a wedding or an event is like a battle and that you want to go to war with, all the people that you can trust, And so like, if it's a photographer I work with all the time, or, a planner you work with all the time, and even like it's at a venue that you're at all the time, videographers, it's just, there's that it's comfortable, and therefore I think that comfortability transfers over to the actual wedding or event itself. Everyone's just comfortable and it just flows.
That resonates so much. I know you see that list of people, and when the list of people includes other vendors that you really enjoy working with, it does make all the difference. You have synergy, you're able to connect with them. And even when there are timeline issues or, whatever the case may be, it's usually able to make those up.
And yeah, because I always say wedding and events are like improv. We have to make things up sometimes as we go. We used to do the California something film festival would happen here in my wine country, and we would go around and we provided the screens and the audio support for this festival. And it was like a 3-day festival. And we were going around with some of the folks that were from the film industry. They had the fancy projectors and the decks that they were playing these films on and all that stuff. And I was like, guys, we got to go, we have to move things, and they're like, it's not. And I finally stopped at one point. I looked at the person that I had a pretty good relationship with. I'm like, this is not like the movies where you get to do the same thing over and over again 20 times till you get it right. I go, we have one shot to get this thing right. And, because he was like, you guys are so fast. You're faster than us. Why? I'm like, because we got to get it right and we got to go. We have a deadline, like we had a very specific timeline of when we had to have every venue set up and ready to go. And I always go back to the film industry because they always have, 20, 30 times to get it right. We have one shot to get this thing right. We can't, so therefore with that one shot, we have to improv as we go sometimes to, something happened in the kitchen or, something happened with one of the family members of the wedding or, pushing things back, it's something happens and you just got to be able to roll with it.
Yeah.
And you want good quality people around you that you can trust to roll with it.
Exactly. Because sometimes depending on the team that you have there too, you can't cover everything all at the same time. So it's, coordination, it's communication that doesn't happen when, you have people that maybe you're not familiar with because there's not that comfort level.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is like, there's venues that I just don't want to work at because I don't enjoy working there. That's just me. And so there's, one of the venues that I work at a lot of time, this photographer, I'll never forget, we're at dinner and she just ripped this place apart because it's hard to shoot. The lighting, all the photos come out yellow. I have to work hard to make them look good, blah, 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 blah. And then the wedding coordinator would walk through from the venue. The wedding coordinator from the venue would walk through the door. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, how's things? Everything's great. Like, and then it turned into this whole like kissing her, to make it. And I'm just like, and then it's funny because I had a really good relationship with that. I'm like, this girl's ripping this place apart. I was just like, she's not, like, be careful with this one. She's not real. It's just so in my head, I'm at one point at dinner, I go like, why are you even working here then if you don't like it? Well, they have a lot of weddings. So, I want to pay the bills. I'm like, well, then have a better attitude about it, when you're here. Cause that, I've been pretty firm. Like for me, if there's San Francisco, I said, the vendors don't want to come here. I don't, be honest with you, if I don't have to go to the city to do an event, I'd be happy because parking, navigating the bridge, just load in. Some of these hotels in San Francisco, they'll have 3-4 events going on at one time with one small loading dock for everyone to get through. So you have to arrive 5-6 hours early just to get your stuff on the loading dock, just to get up, up into these hotels. And it's very difficult. And so it's a business decision that I made that I don't want to work there. And if I'm going to work there, I'm going to charge a whole lot more,
So I love that you brought that up about the relationship and kind of sometimes the duality between the honesty that vendors will have between, each other over a plate.
Yeah.
And then they want the business, which I totally get. But from a venue perspective, you obviously want people working with you who are really actually genuinely excited about the property.
I think people show their true color. I mean, like they'll come in and be excited. And I think if like for that girl, if like your true colors will get shown at some point, you know what I'm saying? Like I've seen, we haven't even touched on it yet, which is how do I get on the preferred vendor list? That's the, and I'm sure that's your favorite question. You have 5 venues, and I'm sure that's your most favorite question that you get asked all the time, and that it's the weirdest approach. I think about it. It's the opposite. You need to develop a relationship with someone. And then when there's that opportunity, they're going to reach out to you to possibly be on their preferred vendor list. And I think it's always okay to ask about being on, like what's the process? How do you come to select these vendors? And then maybe in your head, you can understand and learn, and then work to achieve to become on that list if that's a venue you want to work at all the time.
So Kevin, that's actually something that I wanted to ask you about when thinking about the venue vendor relationship, and coming from a venue owner or operator's perspective. What do you feel like is fair or reasonable to ask from your vendors to be a part of your list? Because I can just tell you from personal experience, as we were formulating our process for getting on our vendor list, there was a big discussion in our office around what do we want to ask the vendors to do. And I know there's so many models. Sometimes it's kind of a pay to play type thing. Sometimes you want them to do some sort of event, some sort of trade for services, but I know that impacts the vendors. So could you give me a vendor's perspective of some of these different scenarios that you've seen and ones that you feel like are better than others?
I don't know if I think every venue has their own way of doing it. And I don't think one way is right and one is wrong, if that makes sense. So you got to look at it, like for me as a vendor, I look at it as marketing dollars. So like there's one of them that uses the guide, you have to advertise in the guide, and they pass it out to everyone. Well, that's how, I'm pretty much guaranteed I'm going to get a whole lot more weddings if I advertise in this guide than I would if I did not, or
are you talking like a guide, like a guide that the venue puts out?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah. And so you advertise in it, and then that's what they hand all their people. And then that's kind of how they develop their list, so that's one model that I've seen that works, but people got really upset. The vendors got upset when it first came out. I'm like, but they're handing us business. Like they're just spoon feeding us business. Why wouldn't we want to pay to play a little bit? Like buying a $500, $600 an ad once a year is not, in my opinion, is not bad, and then there's other venues that want a percentage, and so that's a business decision you have to make to work, if you feel that is right or wrong, and it doesn't, I have relationships where I do pay to play because it's about volume. For me, I look at it at wholesale. They're spoon feeding me work. I don't have to go out. I don't have to have a salesperson out there trying to sell my business. It comes right in my door. So there's different approach, and there's other venues that were on their list that don't ask anything from us. And so when they do ask, like, hey, can you, any way to help out with a sound system? We have an internal event. And most of the time I'm like, here, let us set it up for you. No charge. It's that kind of stuff because they're not asking much of us. And the least we can do for the work that they send our way is, setting up a sound system that's really not costing us anything other than the gas and now the gas is really expensive, but fuel and, and a little bit of labor to set something up is not that much to ask, in my opinion.
Have you ever encountered a scenario where someone has asked, you look at kind of the process, the requirements, and you're like, what the hell? Like, we're not doing this. Like, this is not worth it?
I did recently. It was a venue that we had a relationship with, that we were supposed to. What we did is they charged the client. It was really weird how they did it. They charged the client $250 for every time they had an event there. It was like an added charge, and we were supposed to discount our price $250, for that. It was really weird how they set it up. But then they took it and they wanted $500. Yeah. And I was like, no, we're good. And we moved on, and, we didn't stay with them anymore, because I was like,
this is a venue that you previously had a relationship with.
Correct.
They changed something.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, like, hey, let's take the 250 to 300. Let's, bump it up. It was, they doubled it and went from there
to 500.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, so I made a decision, and it's a business decision. At that time, I wasn't we would get a handful of events a year. So it wasn't, my bottom line wasn't affected by that decision,
Mm-hmm. Have you been a participant at any sort of wedding shows or any sort of open houses that venues have put on that they ask you to come, please, donate your services for? Maybe, we want to have some music or whatever the case may be, but they've asked you to provide that in exchange for being on the list?
I never exchanged for being on the list, but I have done lots of those, and they'll do like different showcases and or bridal fairs or any of that kind of stuff. But it was never in exchange. It was, do you want to participate? And I always participate, and I'm always willing to give them whatever they want, because this is all majority of the time, it's all their clients walking through the door, so this is my time to shine in front of their clients. So if they want us to put up chandeliers or some lighting or drapery behind something, or, doll up the place or do whatever we need to do, I'm always willing to do it, because it's almost guaranteed money back to us.
Absolutely. And you're getting exposed to a new market of maybe additional people who are there, who are outside of, your list or the people that your contacts, your marketing. Like you said, I really like actually what you said, a bit ago, where you were talking about how you consider this marketing dollars. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's a powerful mental shift, because if you could just think about it and allocate part of the money that you would be spending on marketing for some of these things, it really makes a lot of sense.
Well, and nothing against the Knot or Wedding Wire or any of these other services, but you advertise and spend monthly, dollars to be in those, and you're one of, hundreds or whatever the amount is, right? But it's different when you're, most venues are only going to have 3 to 5 vendors per category on their list, so now your percentages have come way down, of that conversion rate going there. So whatever. Anytime you're on a list, for me as a vendor, it's gold. Like being on a preferred vendor list is gold. So whatever you can do to get on that preferred vendor list is amazing. But then the other thing I think people forget is, once you're on the list, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to stay on the list. So you have to continue to develop that relationship, still do a good job, still, things happen, right? Things are going to go wrong. And I'm the first to call the venue and say, hey, we messed up. This is what happened. This is how we're fixing it. And this is what's going to, and then I'm sure as a venue owner, you would appreciate that. 1, we're making it right for the client. 2, I'm keeping you in the loop, because I feel like clients go to you guys for everything, to like complain about this, or, you guys are kind of the central house of complaints. Susie Flowers didn't call me back yet. And what's going, it's happened. It's funny. It recently happened to us. We went to a conference for 2 days, shut our office down for 2 days, put on our website, social media, voicemail, everything, saying we're out of the office for 2 days. We got, 2 different brides call the venues complaining that they can't get a hold of us. And so, and then it was nice because the venue knew, because they saw on social media, well, they're at a conference, I'm sure they'll get back to you when they get back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just kind of, but having those relationships, and, you guys are the center of all the complaints. So anyway.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, because it's so funny. And it shows up in Yelp reviews and Wedding Wire, the Knot reviews, and on Google, and because it's like guests can post too.
They have no idea. Yeah, the guests have no idea that the DJ, that horrible DJ you had at your venue that night, that maybe said some vulgar things on a microphone or something, is a separate service that was brought in and not connected to the venue. And then like, even if you don't provide the food, like some venues don't have their own kitchen, don't provide food. They use outside caterers. Got a bad meal, someone got, food poisoning, any of that kind of, next thing you know, you guys are.
My boyfriend and I were at, exactly. Totally.
It's the toughest position because we all represent, even though we don't represent you, we all represent you in a weird way at a venue. So, yeah.
So speaking of that, have you found some effective ways that venues have actually positioned themselves and I think specifically blank canvas venues. So these are venues that don't have in-house catering, DJ, any of these things. In fact, maybe they just have tables and chairs, right? And so they don't have chandeliers and they don't have drapery or any of that. Have you found that there have been some effective ways that the venues that you have worked with have positioned themselves with their couples to kind of showcase their list in a way that helps make the clear distinction that, hey, like, we're the venue, these are the vendors, and really make that separation? Or have you not experienced that as much?
I don't know if I've experienced that, but I think it's pretty. I think it's inevitable that you guys are going to go down with the sinking ship. It really, I mean, no matter what happens, I really feel like any complaint that I really have ever heard, they're the first to go to the venue for anything. And I mean, this is like other vendor, I'm hearing, the rumor mill around the wedding world is pretty rapid. And, if Johnny's photography service doesn't do a good job one night, you're, at venue X, you're going to hear about it. It goes rampant through the, through the rumor mill, so to speak. But I don't think I haven't really experienced anything. So unfortunately, I'm going to.
It sounds like, it sounds like it really just comes down to a venue making correct decisions with who they have on their list and how they refer those people, so that that, the vendor, just like you were saying, is going to take responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a venue through the pandemic that changed from, they had in-house catering, a lot of in-house sales and all that kind of stuff, and changed. And now it's like they're using outdoor, they're like you said, they're just the blank canvas now. They provide tables and chairs, and everything else has to be brought in. So, and that's been interesting to be from one side to the other, experience with that, because now it's like you go there and it's not the same people working the event every time, because it's different caterers that get to be able to be brought in. So it's taken a little bit longer to develop meaningful relationships at some of these places.
You almost have to redevelop the relationship and kind of go through the whole cycle.
Well, pandemic has brought that on the two venues I told you about, Palm Events or Costa Real, they pretty much all but two people in the office were the only two that came back. Like everyone's moved on to other jobs or, moving outside the industry. So many people became real estate agents. I mean, it's just all these different stories you hear. So it's almost like we had to start over about a year ago as they hire people, that's the biggest thing is, people, want to advance their career. So therefore they might get a catering manager position somewhere else, or an operation manager position at another venue. So it's always developed. You may have that great relationship with a venue, and then all of a sudden that relationship you had, that person you had that connection with moves on, and therefore you're having to redevelop that relationship all over again. So that's always tough. And every time you hear someone leaving, you're like, oh man, I have it so good at this venue. Hopefully the new person, because that happens a lot. I've been on the other side of where that person leaves the venue, they go to a new venue, and then they bring all their old vendors they used to work with over to this new venue. And I feel sorry for all the vendors that worked there before, because they've now been replaced by all of us. And so, and it happened to me once at a venue here locally that we work with a lot. Someone new came in and had a relationship with everyone, and they brought in all the people from their old, from the old place. So
is there a way for vendors to hedge against that? Because I've seen it too. I mean, literally we took over a property actually, and there were vendors on that list that just we were looking to do something a little bit different, but we brought in some different people who are from our team who had different relationships.
Yeah. The one thing I will say that the ones that have done it in the past where I've been pretty successful remaining on the list is like I introduce myself, try to set up time to meet with them, and then even send them, hey, here's a portfolio of our work that we've done there before. You know, do you have any questions about what we do, how we do it? You know, are you going to be making any changes moving forward? Or, you know, are you going to be looking for something different that the old management was you didn't like that they did? You know, I think just trying to open that line of communication and asking questions, I don't think is a bad thing, you know, because just because they did it the old management did it one way doesn't mean the new people are going to want to do it the same way. Maybe that's why they got the job, you know, coming in there. They have new, fresh ideas, you know, so like trying to come in there and go, hey, are you planning on making any changes? What are some of the things you'd like to bring in? You know, what are some of the things that you wish this venue, vendors did while they were here? You know, just asking questions like that it starts that conversation. And before you know it, you know, you're developing that relationship.
Yeah. You have that relationship again.
And I feel like they care. I mean, because at some of these venues, I care about the venue, you know, like if I see somebody, you know, I'm the first. I recently had it to where a photographer was being a major jerk to one of the coordinators. And I finally stepped in and I was like, hey, what's going on? Can I help you guys? And, you know, and I knew in the background, and believe it or not, this photographer was such a jerk that he got an email from the manager and saying, do you have any events here booked moving forward? No, great. Then don't book any more here. You're not welcomed here anymore. You know, because he was so rude to the person. But I felt like obligated to come step in, you know?
Yeah. Well,
you know, and I'm the first too, because what the venues I was telling you about, you know, we do the lighting, we're in the ceiling, and we're on the scissor lift. And so we're up there. They forget that you're there because you're so high up, but you'll see like people running through the bar, you know, like groomsmen come to the wedding and they're behind the bar and they're not supposed to be. I'm the first to go, hey, guys, don't belong back there. Get out of there. You know, I don't mind saying that, you know, helping out in a different, broader perspective that, you know, it's not my place to tell them to get out of the bar, but I don't mind, you know, hey, you don't belong there.
You're still going to support the goals of the venue. And so, yeah, I think that's so incredible. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. I know the vendor venue relationship is something that people are often thinking about, you know, getting on the list. How do you stay on the list? What happens? Like some of these topics, I don't even hear people talk about very often, specifically about, you know, when management changes and how to remain on the list or maybe offer additional value to that new management team coming in. So this has been really valuable, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share this with our audience.
My pleasure. I could talk about this stuff all day. So
I know. Same here. But I wanted to know, for anyone who is interested in connecting with you more, connecting with Fantasy Sound Event Services, connecting with just the wealth of knowledge that you have, where should people be reaching out?
Sure. We can go. I have two websites, fantasysound.com or weddingiq.com. And you can reach us through Instagram, like FS Events, FSES Events on Instagram, or wedding_IQ on Instagram as well. So
wedding_IQ. Cool. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, Kevin, thank you again for coming on the show. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We'll talk to you soon. I'm sure I'll be bumping into you at some industry events here.
I'll be there.
All right. Talk to you soon.